that away. San Mariglis, and if you continue east, actually southeast, but you're going to hit the beach. Utah Beach is actually southeast from here. But like I said, San Mariglis, critical road network. Of the two bridges, this is the one directly out of San Mariglis here at Lafayette. About a mile to the south is Chef du Pont. Important, but turned out to be not as important as this. Now, we have the Merdere River right here. Back in 1943, the Germans opened up the La Barquette locks and flooded all of this area. Now the locks, there's been a whole system of flood control for centuries around this area for farming. And what the Germans had done is they had come in and just opened everything up, flooded this area. We're right here, it's like a river delta at the Douve estuary at the base of the peninsula. So one problem is when we started running aerial photography over this area, since this had been flooded back in 1943, you had river grass reeds had grown up through the top of the water. So from the air, it looked like grass. So there were drop zones for the 82nd. Turned out to be right in the middle of flooded areas. The descriptions were ground may be soft. Unfortunately, a lot of guys were lost in that drop. But fortunately, the only battalion in all of Normandy to actually land cohesively was the 1st of the 505th. And their objective was Lafayette. So they managed to get down here very early in the morning of June 6th. There's a small garrison here at Lafayette Manor, about 28 folks. Guys, watch the real, please. Because you see the locals will not slow down for you. Ultimately, the Germans are going to get reinforced. There are going to be about 80 Germans there. They're not going to get pushed out until late in the day on June 6th. And it's at that time, the last German to come across the river will only be POWs after this point. We hold this area. The Germans counterattack late in the afternoon on the 6th. They actually bring up 3 tanks. If you see, there are some great photographs of it. The tanks are from a Panzer training battalion, and they're actually old Czech FT-17 and French tanks. But an obsolete 75mm gun can kill you just as well as a brand new 75mm gun. Luckily, when the lead tank is coming up just before the bridge, there's a 57mm anti-tank gun right at the top of the hill that had just come in on a glider. They get it set up, the tank is coming up, and on either side of the bridge, right on this side, are 2 bazooka teams. During the initial fight, one bazooka team, their bazooka's going to get knocked out, they're going to withdraw. The other team, with a guy named Peterson and Heim, they jump up, fire at the tank. At the same time, the 57 fires at the tank. At the same time, someone kills the tank commander who's sticking out of the top with a machine gun. The anti-tank round and the bazooka hit the tank, and luckily it starts skewing sideways and it blocks the road. The second tank coming up is trying to push it out of the way. And this is where Peterson and Heim, who both are going to be decorated with the Distinguished Service Cross, they jump up, run up, and they just keep firing their bazooka. They run out of ammunition. At that time, Heim runs across the road to where that other team was, sees their damaged bazooka, but they had left rounds behind. He picks up those bazooka rounds and they continue to fire and knock out that second tank. The third tank is going to retreat. In fact, you can see photos of them knocked out. They've got some really excellent photos. fight here is going to go on all through the 6th, all through the 7th, all through the 8th. And it's very complex. But the bottom line is, by the 9th, the Germans are going to launch their last counterattack in the afternoon. It's going to be defeated. That's when glider troops from the 325th are going to come in and attack across the bridge, 1,000 yards to the town of Kokini, which is on the other side. Right across the other end of the causeway is a little church, and there's a small force of glider guys who are defending that side of the river. The Germans launched their last counterattack, and there's a 6'6", 200-pound gliderman named Charles de Glopper. He's a Browning automatic rifleman. He tells his platoon to withdraw while the Germans are counterattacking. He steps out into the middle of the road with his BAR and lays down suppressive fire. Kills about a dozen Germans, they find out afterwards. He continues to fire. He's wounded. He goes down. Even when he's down, he fires till he runs out of ammunition. His body is going to be recovered the next day, and he will receive the Medal of Honor for his actions that day. It's ultimately going to be his glider comrades that are able to push across the river. The commander of the glider guys, West Point graduate, cool guy, loses his nerve during the initial attack. When General James Gavin tells him to go, he's like, I'm not sure, sir. And Gavin winds up relieving him on the spot, grabs the regimental S2, who happened to be the next senior guy, and said, lead the attack now. And so you have a brigadier general down there literally kicking paratroopers and glider guys in the butt, a la Dick Winters, pushing them across the causeway. So by the end of the night, we own this causeway. No Germans are coming across. By this time, by the 9th, we've got the 90th Infantry Division is ashore. We've got tanks from the 746th Tank Battalion and 155 millimeter guns. Those are big. Firing across the marsh here, providing a smoke screen. So it takes an incredible amount of combat power on this little tiny piece of real estate to push through. Every time I read about it, I'm going, okay, who wasn't here? Now, part of the reason we bring you here, Airborne Memorial. The other reason is we know of at least one member of Easy Company who did fight here in the first 24 hours. I was about to say it's a guy named Lloyd Guy. That is his name, Lloyd D. Guy. Original Toccoa man. His grandson was with us last year and played an audio recording of his grandfather when he was in his 90s, very shortly before his death, just describing D-Day. He never mentions Lafayette, but based on the aircraft, the stick that he was in, when he jumped, how he describes where he lands. He knows he lands west of San Mariglis. He meets up with some 82nd guys, and he moves west out of town down to a bridge, and then he describes the fighting around here. So we know of at least one E Company member, possibly a couple of other guys if they were in the same stick, fight here during that first 24 hours. By that time, you get more 82nd guys coming here, and Guy and anybody else from the 101st is going to say, look, we've got our mission, and they're going to move out. Does anyone have any questions here?
Gliders. Are these the gliders?
We're all over. But luckily, the gliders that had the anti-tank guns landed up north of San Mariglis.
So, the depiction of it in the miniseries there, where they're firing on the tank, he talks about how close they are. Do we have any idea of about what the distance they would have been at from the tank?
If you're standing on this side of the bridge and you're shooting at the other side of the bridge, if you look at the photos, the first tank where we turned around the bus, that's where the first tank was.
And what would be typical firing distance for a bazooka man, do you know?
our bazooka wasn't.
I assume that would be really close.
Yeah, and our bazookas didn't have that great of a range on it. The Germans had a better anti-tank weapon than we did. But on the kind of, 50, 75 yards max that they're firing, and but again, these are older tanks, so they were able to knock them out. Yeah. Again, there's some photographs. I'll see if I can find it for you. It was from Panzerabteilung 100, Tank Training Group 100, which was actually located on the other side of Kokinen. So they were a tank training unit, and we'll talk a little bit later about the German defenses here. They basically took every bit of weaponry they could from occupied territory. So defending the coast, the Germans were using Czech guns, Polish guns, loads of French guns, obsolete German stuff. There were 90 different calibers. So if you were an ordnance guy, I mean, just what a nightmare. Because you've got, we have a Czech 75, which fires, its 75 millimeter ammo may not necessarily fit into this French 75. So just an absolute nightmare of management. But again, an obsolete machine gun will kill you just as much as a modern machine gun. Yeah, bullet's a bullet.
So which causeway was
this? Actually wasn't one of the causeways. So the causeways 1 through 4 are further to the east. So they're on the other side of San Mariglis, where we'll be. Now this is a causeway. Like I said, it was more elevated, the sides were steeper, there were some trees, but in fact, when we go over and you're up by the monument, all of this hillside was nothing but paratroopers dug in. At the top of the hill, you'll see the little white chained off area? That'll say Foxhole of Brigadier General James Gavin. It's not James Gavin's foxhole. It was a hole, and someone decided to.
You just ruined it. We really.
I'm sorry. I know.
You had us.
But again, it is a hole. We can't prove that James Gavin did
Made with a backhoe.
Yeah, to me it would have been an awful place for him to be. He more than likely he would have been on the defilade side here, but he and Taylor were up. I mean, when Gavin gets here on the morning of June 6th, he actually brings some folks he's gathered up at night. Then he moves a mile down to Chef DuPont, checks on those guys. They've got the bridge. Gavin gathers up more paratroopers, brings them back up here. So his actions, there's a reason Marlene Dietrich went for him pretty hard. That is true.
Utah Beach, that way?
That way.
How far? Well, you're the expert. So.
He's not going to know.
What do we know?
Oh God, that's right. I can lie about it. Just make it up. It's fair. You'll tell when we drive today. So I'd like a chance to go ahead and head up to the memorial. But again, then you can really look out and appreciate the Germans had tons of